Hey, so in this video, I'm going to be talking about just the Mueller situation. Robert Mueller was doing an investigation on Russian collusion with Donald J. Trump. Supposedly had colluded with the Russians, and then the Democratic Party and the political left in the United States of America was really behind this. A lot of people were behind this. A lot of investment was done into this, saying that, look, we didn't think Donald Trump was going to win, so they're trying to find reasons for why Donald Trump would have won. And this Russia collusion would have explained this for a lot of people that, yes, he actually cheated. That's how Hillary Clinton lost. Because people were just certain, many people were certain that Hillary Clinton was going to win. All the polls were showing election night was like 90% this to that. And I think one thing we're forgetting with all the technology and advancement that we have today is certain risks that used to occur. We have evolved in a situation where certain decisions we made would be life or death situations, where now that has been lessened, especially in the developed countries, especially for a lot of people listening to this video. Things have changed, where now it's like, okay, your reality tunnel might actually change in a different way, but not necessarily life or death. You're not going to be like breathing one day because you make this decision and dead the next day. Even though some people are like, oh my God, I totally died. This is killing me. This is the worst day of my life. It isn't really. I mean, things will go on. And with this kind of situation, I think we're seeing people's identity, their reality tunnel die in a situation. And that happens. And I think you kind of need to understand it. I mean, if you look at it in that way, where it's like, look, some people have decided, they made this decision that, look, I am looking at Trump in this kind of way. And then you make that decision, and then you follow that, and then you make that, you follow it. And then by you trying to defend this decision, your career as a reputable reporter, as a reputable institution of information, of a news institution, dies, and then that ends. This is how businesses happen. It works with business too. I think my customers want this. Then you invest in actually providing that to your customers. Turns out your customers don't want that. Then your business can't run anymore, and then it ends. In the further past, it used to be, I think that animal is going to come across this corner in this way, so I'm going to go hide at this place. That animal goes around another corner, it goes away, you don't get your food, you die. So your actual decision about what the world is going to be like is actually a situation where it used to cost you your actual life. It could be like, I think that animal is hiding here, I'm going to come out here, I'm going to try to take it down with this spear, I'm going to throw the spear this way, you throw the spear, you miss, that animal sees you, it runs at you, it gores you, you die. Or like someone's like, hey, I think this fruit is okay. Yeah, I haven't had this fruit before. I'm normally having those fruits, but if I get these fruits, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get them. They're 10 kilometers away. That's a long walk. I'm really hungry now. So I'm going to try this fruit that kind of looks like it. And you eat that fruit. That fruit is poisonous. You die. So this used to happen over and over again. Oh, this guy has said something about this guy. You mean this guy? This guy said something about my mom. This guy said something about something I did. No, I'm not going to accept that. I'm going to call this person a liar. I'm going to call this person a horrible person. I'm going to challenge this person. That person's like, okay, you challenge me. Let's have a duel. You die for making that false decision. So that was a thing that regularly happens. And I think we're seeing this right now in a lot of situations. Some people had sat and said, I'm going to support Trump. And then if it turns out that he actually had colluded, then it's like, yes, that person dies. His social identity, social cachet might die in a certain way. The people who are supporting him in that way might die. At least the idea to other people in their lives of like, okay, you're kind of dead to me now because you've proven to me that you're not somebody I can trust, I can believe. You don't really see the world in as close to reality, I mean, closer to reality as it is. And I think you're seeing this a lot with the people on the political left, where it's like for them, they are not necessarily seeing things in a certain way. Don Lemon, to me, is far and gone where he just does not, at least even if he does see it, but the person he provides, when I see him, I just take everything he says with a massive grain of salt. And like, look, I don't really trust the way someone like Don Lemon sees the world, at least how he talks about it. He's seeing it in a skewed way that I think is unhealthy and does not really map onto the way things actually are. And I think this is something that we might actually be seeing the death of CNN, of MSNBC, of a lot of these people in the mainstream media. And I think it's for the better, because I think this death is coming not because of they're evil or they're stupid, but they just don't have an accurate understanding of what reality is. They're no longer in a situation where they're providing a good estimation of what reality actually is. So now into the video. So I think I'm going to be doing a few of these, just my general reactions to things, and then maybe I'll put them together in a video after this. But just the reaction, I'm currently watching some thing from Don Lemon talking to people about, it says, for the covering up Trump's obstruction, because now obstruction is the new collusion. They're saying, okay, well, they haven't said there's actually no obstruction. They just said there's no legal proof of it. So now they're really worried about the legalese, about what actually follows of these things. What happened to, like, if there's smoke, there's fire? Well, it's because that smoke was coming out of their behinds this whole time. They were the one just blowing it out of each other's behinds in some kind of, like, what's it called? That Centipede movie? Where they were just kind of following each other in a human centipede way, just smoke out of each other's behinds, and then that's the smoke that they're seeing with this nonsense. This is absurd. I mean, just seeing... I don't know, it's surprising, but just seeing this collapse and this the way they're reaching for people, it's like it's this is like they're the Titanic. It's like the media itself, mainstream media itself, has been like the Titanic, and then Trump was the iceberg in some way, and then now they've been crashing, and then this gets to the point where you're like, okay, the actual parts, the last parts of it, the parts that you're interested in, you're looking at these things after hoax after hoax, after them jumping behind Jussie Smollett, after jumping on the Covington kids, after all these things, they just pile on. They just keep messing up. And now it's kind of like a situation where Jack, who the Leonardo DiCaprio character, is like the last bit of credibility that they would have. And then narrative is Rose. And then right now, obstruction is the little the door, or that piece of wooden plank that, instead of putting that last bit of credibility of Jack, or finding a way for both of them to be on there, they just want to hold on to the narrative and put Rose on top of that Rose narrative on top of that obstruction thing, and it's over. They just want to keep going with that. I guess the lie, the hoax will go on. The narrative shall go on. And now they're talking about this thing. They're saying, oh, it's going to be another talking point of theirs. He never actually got Trump to sit down and have a live interview with him. What's the point? If you send out the actual questions, you're worrying about the legal things, the questions are answered. When you sit down in front of somebody can get you to perjure yourself for other reasons. And we saw this happen with General Flynn and other people who were actually indicted and found to have lied to the FBI in different ways based off of things that are not related to that. And this is something that it has. You have the right to remain silent. The president is, like everyone else, applied to that law. Like, you don't have to put yourself in a situation where you might say something that can be used against you. Now, does that mean he has actually gone in and done something in Russian collusion? They're just assuming that, oh, if he sat down, he'd have said something. Well, they already think he lies all the time. So if they're saying he lies all the time, then what's the point? What's wrong with him actually sitting down and answering questions? And then if those questions came back to Mueller, who they've been saying is beyond reproach in this kind of situation, then why wouldn't Mueller say, okay, this question is not sufficient, I need a further answer, I need to go further? So they're talking about also how now Donald Trump and people on the right are saying, oh yeah, now we have to listen to Mueller, and they're saying, oh, how can you say this after you've been talking crap about him for so long? But then also now the same people that were saying Mueller needs to stay in, Mueller is the one who's going to prove this right, oh, he's not biased one way, yes, he hired all these Democrats, but I mean, he's a Republican, so now they're like, yeah, well, you know, he's a Republican, and we gotta wait, and we gotta see the whole thing. And now again, with the whole see the whole thing, they're like, there's people coming on, oh, the American people need to see this. The American people deserve this. They're the ones who actually paid and paid for this investigation. First of all, I think they want to shift over that whole idea that the government decided to come in and spend this. They want the narrative out there that the American people in whole are the ones who actually paid for this actual investigation, instead of saying, yes, the Democratic Party in general was behind pushing most of this narrative to get this whole money spent. I think it's about 25 million, might be higher than that, but they're saying that's what has been spent to actually do this. So they're saying the American people paid for this. We deserve to see it. And then it should be redacted. Oh no, it should be redacted. First of all, these people in Congress, senators, are not the American people. These are the amount of people who actually vote, first of all. Okay, I have my issues with the whole voting system, but It's a percentage of the people that vote for some of these people. A lot of those people in those positions are also Republicans, from people who didn't want this thing to go on. So they're just assuming that, yes, the American people, because you just happen to take money away from American people in general and use that money and redistribute it for this kind of situation. But there's also people who didn't want this to go on. There's other people who thought this was a waste of time. So kind of shifting over and saying, no, it's the American people. We all want to see this thing. But then they're also like, oh, we're going to redact it. Yeah. Okay, so they understand. They already know that this whole idea that the American people deserve to see all the things that the government are doing, that's bullcrap. You guys know that's not true. People in the state understand. They feel that they're in a privileged position, like we should see certain things that you shouldn't see. This happens over and over again. So this whole idea that, oh yeah, we just need to have the whole thing. Because if it was truly open that way, they just be like, let's just have the whole thing out there. But they understand there needs to be redaction in this kind of thing. So this whole thing is just a continual downward spiral of these people just at the bottom of that toilet bowl, the credibility just going away. And it's going to be quite something to watch, just seeing the reaching that's going on in this kind of situation. Like I said, I'm probably going to figure out some more things and add to this. All right. And some people have talked about how this is red pilling people, or red pilling is that whole idea when they get information. It's from the Matrix, where it's like you take the blue pill and you go back into the Matrix, and all the things that you could possibly learn about what's really happening are just going to go away, and you got to go back and plug yourself back into the machine. And red pill was you take the red pill, you come out, and you start learning more things. And I think these are just those things where it's just eventually you start getting pilled on these kind of things, because these are the same people that have been following the Me Too movement, following things like that, the Brett Kavanaugh thing that were following, said the previous hoaxes and things, where it's just belief. They don't worry about the actual legal definitions and things. They're just like, no, the accusation is out there, so believe these people. They don't actually go and someone's like, okay, well, you said that person did that, but legally, what exactly is assault? Legally, what exactly is XYZ? They're the ones who are like, no, you can't victim blame. You can't ask these questions. Why don't you believe this person? But now they're all like, well, legally, if there really was no obstruction, then they would just come out and say there isn't obstruction. But does that mean like there was just no legal obstruction? Like he could have obstructed in one? Because that's one thing they've been saying constantly. Oh, Donald Trump has been obstructing by him saying it's a witch hunt. That's not an obstruction. It's just saying it's a witch hunt because it's actually a witch hunt. Donald Trump himself probably, he lived through that. It was his lived experience. He knows he didn't collude. So yeah, I was thinking maybe there might have been a chance, an inexperienced political party, a political campaign, where they actually had some kind of discussion and talk with somebody from the Russians, from some kind of Russian delegation, where there could have been some kind of mismatch with things like that. But that whole idea, I think he was rather confident because he personally hadn't done it, and I think people he trusts hadn't done it. So they came out and they said, look, we literally have not done this actual Russian collusion in order to become the president of the United States, to campaign. So for them it was simple to come out and say, look, this is a witch hunt. Now, yesterday I saw something where they were talking about polls for the amount of people that think it is a witch hunt and or think something might have happened. There might have been some obstruction and things like that. And it was something like 44% thought they would, and then 41% thought they wasn't. And they were like, this is a Fox News poll. And like, look, it doesn't matter if it's a Fox News poll if 90% of the mainstream media is leaning left, pushing that narrative of obstruction, and then Fox News goes out and they get a selection of 1,000 people. They're like, Fox News viewers said that 44% majority of them think there was actual obstruction. First of all, that's not how polls work. It's not just Fox News viewers. I mean, in some polls, I'm assuming they just call 1,000 people, or they just go to the streets and talk to 1,000 people. They don't specifically say, if you're watching Fox News, call in and answer this poll. It's like, no, there's a selection. I think these people do understand that they were using polls that were skewed to the Democrats, to the left. They've actually shown there's some actual studies and things like this who have gone in and looked at the polling systems for these, and that's why they were so off with the polls in the presidential election and other things like that, because they understand. And this is the whole thing with the left. They project constantly. They understand that when they do polls, they skew them to the left. So they're also assuming that when Fox was doing this poll, they were skewing it to the right instead of just doing a poll. Now, I don't know if Fox did, I don't know if they did, but as I said already, this majority of the mainstream media, majority of the most of the locations where people are getting their information about politics skew to the left. So if you just go out and you get 1,000 people, then the chances are majority of those people have been actually intaking material that skews to the left politically. So majority of those people would have been hearing obstruction, 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 collusion, 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 collusion for months and years, probably. It's up to years now. Months and months and months, this has been pounded into their head. So of course, there's going to be people, I mean, not of course, but it just makes sense that there's going to be some people who are more lenient to that way. And then even after all of that, for it to still be 44% to 41%, and that was previous to this actual report coming out, this actual information coming out, these people, I mean, part of me wants to say like, oh, it's time to just sit down and have like more cordial relationships with these people. But there's some people that deserve to just be fully mocked and treated just like the imbecilic behavior that they're doing. They truly need to be mocked, and I think that needs to be a focus. You need to kind of now see who are the people still clinging on to this narrative. Who are the people still talking about these? There's going to be people, as I said before, I think I might have said this before in a previous video, where I already have some anecdotal evidence where people who were kind of thinking about this are now like, okay, we're glad nothing seems to have happened. And they're getting disgusted by these people who seem to be upset that there was actual no collusion. If the people are talking about it, yes, one of the pivots, I don't think it's a pivot, but I think it's a positive next step is, yes, if Russia actually did collude, and this is the thing, or not collude, if Russia actually did influence actual political systems in the United States of America, they need to double check and see what exactly was done, how can that be stopped. And I hope that carries over also to people understanding that the United States government itself, we also need to understand what does the United States government do involving other countries. Like right now, one thing I mentioned before is they're starting to look into what happened with Ukraine under Hillary Clinton's State Department and things like that. I think the ambassador has already been shuffled out of there. She was a holdover from Obama's administration, and she's been very anti-Trump. So there's going to be things coming out of that, and I don't expect this to happen, but I hope there's some people in the media who come out and say, okay, now that we saw what Russia's doing here, let's also now look in and see what the United States of America is doing in other places. Let's now also look in and see, okay, what's the next thing? How much do they actually affect? Because this is one thing I've mentioned before. There's currently like a whole meme movement with like Yang 2020, who's a Democratic, I'm sitting there for the memes. Oh man, the memes are good. So there's something about that, but people are talking about how, oh, we're going to meme Yang into the presidency. And a lot of people thought that they actually memed Donald Trump into the presidency. And now I don't really think the effect was that much, because I think most of the swing voters were people in their 30s and 40s and things like that, who aren't really like in Reddit or Facebook getting their wall full of like memes and things like that. And no, that was more, I think, the younger generation who are involved with the memes, the younger generations and things like that. People were like 30 and below and things like that. So like 15 to 30. A lot of people probably didn't even vote who were involved with this meme thing, and a lot of the younger people did vote for Democrats. So you get this kind of situations. I think most of the meme people are in bigger cities, so it's be people who might be more politically right-leaning, who don't really have the outside environment on their social life, on their regular day-to-day life, because most people in bigger cities lean to the left. So they might have had some pent-up energies and done like that. Like I know I spent some time in New York, lived there for a bit, and there was a very big, a much of the actual, like the Donald environment, which is a subgroup on Reddit and people like this, there's a rather significant community of people who are politically to the right, who are coming up, and they found each other and like, wow, it's good to find people in a city like this. I've been to other meetups and things like that with more conservative people, and it's good, like wow, we didn't know there was this many of us. So I think they go to the internet and they do an outreach and they express their beliefs and their thoughts and their political leanings in that kind of way. And you have that kind of community. It's not necessarily something that's going to sway people either way. So they're trying to say, okay, Russia spent what, 20 million or something? Let's say they spent 10 million in Facebook ads and things like this. Are they saying that the American populace is dumb enough or gullible enough for them to be swayed by $10 million? Like the Russian meme people, the Russian bots somehow understand Americans so much that they could spend 10 million and sway a presidential election and sway elections in this way, whereas Hillary Clinton, the most qualified candidate ever to run, could spend billions, over $1 billion, and not know the American people enough to secure that victory? Is that what she's trying to say? Or is this just, we have to completely deny the fact that Donald J. Trump was actually better of a candidate, ran a better candidacy, was more in touch with the American people, and actually won this thing? They have to find other ways. I think with some of them, they just can't come to that admission. Coming to that admission would be a recognition of an L to a point where they just can't do it anymore. It would destroy their reality tunnels in a way. They'd have to really kind of rethink a lot of things in their life. And this is a religious thing for these people. So for some of them, they just can't get to this point. They just won't be able to. All right, might add some more. The gift that keeps on giving has given some more gifts. So they're talking about how, this obstruction thing. I mean, the fact that they didn't actually sit down and have him actually answer questions. It's like taking a take-home test. Like, these are probably the same people that are very pro-schooling system that has now with, like, taking homework. And homework has been shown to really have little to no effect on the kids' ability to actually learn things. And it's also just the whole situation of homework in public schools where you're already taxing people and shifting money to these Red for Ed type teachers who are protesting for more money, things like this. So I have many videos on education, on the schooling system. But anyway, so they're talking about how, like, the testing for these things, girls, they test better in this kind of way, doing homework, you count that, the scores and things. No, okay, so this whole idea that, it's like taking a take-home test. No, first of all, no, it's not. This is different. I mean, you still have to answer the questions. You still have, the questions have to be answered. So you have the take-home test versus coming in person and taking a take-home test where the test is also there and you come in with your lawyer and you actually can talk to your lawyer and, like, your lawyer is going to say, like, can you actually answer this question? Instead of just coming in and, like, I can't answer that question. I don't have the information to answer the question. I can't provide you that answer right there. What's the big difference with that? I mean, they've had people go sit in front of Congress in these live streamed or things and they just show the people and they just say, I can't answer that question. I can't answer that question. I can't answer that question due to XYZ. I can't answer that question. But if you have the questions actually there, you can actually get the information and answer them. So, at the same way, they haven't actually seen what those questions were yet. At least, I haven't heard them say they actually saw what the questions were in that kind of situation. So why are they just assuming that these questions that he answered were just null and void? They shouldn't be actually considered to be something to actually prove the fact that he hasn't had the obstruction. Because now they're just focusing on, it hasn't absolved him of any obstruction, but also hasn't said he obstructed anything. Yet they've been constantly saying he obstructed things. And then they go in and they say, look, Congress, I'm sure, is going to keep going with this. They're going to let this go and they're going to look into this actual thing before the 2020 election. Of course, they're going to keep it going. We know this. And then it comes to the projection thing like, Trump is already talking about this. He's talking about this too much. There could be something he's going to let go. It's like the Hillary thing. He's going to keep talking about this from years from now. How do you know that? Trump has a lot of other things he talks about. Then if he just throws out a word here and there, like, remember that witch hunt? They're like, see, we told you, he's still doing this. But it's a bit ludicrous for this kind of just projections. Like, we know what Trump is going to be saying for years and years now. If you knew what he was going to be saying, how right are these people? This one thing, just how correct have these people been whenever they've discussed things to do with Trump? So whenever you start hearing them talking about what Trump is going to do, who Trump has been like, how he's going to react to XYZ, just ask yourself, have these people been correct about Trump in the past? If they're saying he's never going to let this go, he keeps talking about this constantly, how much coverage were they giving this thing compared to other things that were going on? How much coverage was on CNN and these kind of outlets? And then they're the ones talking about how Trump is not letting this go. Well, did you guys let it go? Were you guys just like, okay, we're not going to talk about this that much, we're just going to wait for the results to come? Or was it just a constant barrage of just more Russia, more collusion, now it's more obstruction? So another talking point or another thing that they're going to be talking about is that Russia still has blackmail things. It might not be something collusion, but Trump might still be under the control of Russians because of all the deals that he had. Like, this guy was talking on this panel, and And Don Lemon just picks up. It's like, oh, so you mean they could still have control of him? I mean, they could still have a situation where it's like, okay, they can just get a situation like, okay, we have this material on you, so Donald, you have to do this. I mean, we have this material on you. So if that was the case, then when Mueller was investigating this whole situation, he hasn't found any of those things that they supposedly have on him. This is, again, they're stating that some Russians coming and just doing business kind of deals are somehow a lot more effective at getting material on the President of the United States than the entire intelligence apparatus of the United States of America. Yet they're still saying that it's ridiculous that Donald Trump, doing an interview, public interview, with a public press conference with President Putin, says, okay, well, Putin told me that it wasn't Russia, so it's not Russia. Like, I have no reason to believe that he's lying. So this is the thing. What do they want him to say? They want him to say in a public press conference to be like, yeah, hey, by the way, Putin's a complete liar. This is the evidence that our people have had. And this is, I'm agreeing with our intelligence agencies because they've given me this information. If he had that information to show the direct connection of how Russia, under the direction of President Putin, had actually done something to mess with the election, and he had that a dossier or a file or just evidence from the actual intelligence community, and then he goes out and says, no, Russia hasn't done anything because Putin said so. That's a whole different deal than him just saying, Putin said he hasn't. I have no reason to not believe Putin in this situation. That doesn't mean other people in Russia can be involved in this kind of thing. That doesn't mean they could be opposition people Putin is actually involved with. And this is the thing. Just because somebody's president doesn't mean they control everything. This is the kind of situation they say, okay, Mueller, it's not going to affect some of the frustration of this thing. And then the reminder once again how this thing started with Hillary Clinton having an Oppo piece of research where she hired Christopher Steele, who hired Russians to do this thing. So we already know, in that sense, that is some evidence that's really out there that some Russians were involved. Now, does that mean Putin was the one who was organizing these people that Steele went and actually hired for the Steele dossier? No, Putin probably had nothing to do with these people. For all he knows, for all Trump knows, Putin had nothing to do with the people that Steele used to make the dossier that he then gave to Hillary Clinton's people. Maybe even Hillary Clinton directly had nothing to do with this, and this was people in Hillary Clinton's campaign that decided to try and get this. It could have been Peter Stork and other people in the intelligence community that had nothing to do with Obama directly actually knowing these things going on. This whole idea that somebody is a figurehead and they know everything goes back to the religious thing. For these people, it's a religious thing. That president is a godhead. That leader is a godhead, where it's like anything that's done by angels and priests and preachers and these other people are just lesser beings in this pantheon of theirs, where that top person has this. And then again, one other thing, the open mic situation with President Obama years back with President Medvedev of Russia at that time, where he was like, I'm going to have a little more leeway to work on things after the election. Is that not collusion? Is the whole uranium one thing with Hillary Clinton's State Department okaying a transfer of all this uranium to the Russian interests? That's not collusion. I mean, just the double standards of this thing is just absurd and ridiculous. So now they're just going to move on to this whole situation where Trump might have blackmail, and I guess that's why they're kind of putting their eggs in the basket, or counting. Okay, we still have eggs in these baskets of all these other court cases that are supposedly going against Donald J. Trump. So this ends up with Van Jones and somebody else. I think she leans more to the political right, and she's talking about this. What's going to happen after this? If the Democrats keep going on this Mueller thing over and over, the Russia thing, and focusing on this instead of focusing on actual issues and policies and things like that, like they supposedly did in the midterms and actually end up getting some seats there, then that's not a good way forward. And I think everybody in the panel kind of agreed. But Don Lemon just finishes this off with just talking about, we need some consistency. If people agree that, okay, they shouldn't have investigated this thing, the Mueller thing, then the Republicans should be consistent and also have understood that they shouldn't have happened with the Benghazi thing. The Benghazi and all these investigations into Hillary Clinton shouldn't have happened. And I think a key thing is that, because these people know that right now, after this, chances are now it's going to switch back to now investigating the investigation, investigating why this came. They know. Don Lemon has to know where the Steele dossier came from. I mean, he's gotten enough information in, even if they don't talk about it. They understand this. And this idea of consistency, it's ridiculous. It's absurd to hear this from these people. They're just how can you not and just, we need you to be consistent with this situation. How often are you consistent in a situation where somebody comes up with an accusation and then you say, oh, we need to wait for information to come in, versus just jumping on and saying, oh, I believe this person. I'm talking to Jussie right now. I text him and I talk to him, and this is a horrible thing. This is a kind of situation when the people come out and actual presidential nominees or presidential candidates, presidential hopefuls are talking about how this is a modern day lynching, when so little information has actually come out, when all these hoaxes come out, when all these things, you keep saying, oh, he lies so much. Give some examples of these lies. Oh, there's such a raise in these crimes, in these situations. Give an example and show, like, look, in the past, there was 20 people who were hurt in these kind of crimes. Now, there's 50 people. Just show some actual figures. Show some actual consistency. You don't need to ask for consistency. You just be consistent, and then other people will see what you're doing and be like, okay, these people are consistent, so when we're dealing with them, we should be consistent as well. It's a mess. Now I'm going to read some of the comments in this in this video, just because the comments, I like going to comments and kind of just getting a taste of kind of what people are thinking on things like that, or just getting some kind of idea. So anyway, this is on a video on YouTube. Occasionally people post news things from other countries and things like that, and CNN, MSNBC, Fox, and things like that. So it's not an official thing. So I don't know how many people are. Again, you can't tell who's going to be skewed. Like, I'm watching this, but I don't lean to the left. But I'm assuming most of the people who do watch this, because you're actually selecting to go and actually watch a thing, like I was talking about earlier with the whole poll thing, in this kind of situation, most people who go and click on an uploaded version of a Tucker Carlson show, they're not going to be going there just to like hate watch or be like, oh, I wonder what this crazy person is saying. They'll lean that way. So generally you find most people on those kind of videos be supportive of things Tucker says. Most people in these kind of videos are going to lean to the left and be supportive of what something like CNN and Don Lemon says. So with that said, let's get into the actual reading of some of these things. Okay, the first comment, I have mine on like top comments, but there's just a few comments. There's 73 comments, but let's just see what people said. I think there's a name for when you're not guilty after being accused. I think it's exonerated, LMAO. So this is 5 likes. This is the top one's highlighted comment, I guess. And then the response by someone named Biggest Dickus, Mike Bernard, this is talking to the first person. He's not exonerated. That's not what the report said. Don't celebrate until he has survived all 11 investigations hanging over his head at this time. 17 investigations, sorry. Now, I don't know if these 17 investigations, the person has actually counted the ones in like the Southern District of New York, or is this going to like the 17 intelligence agencies that were researching this thing, which was a figure that was actually not quite correct. If I'm not mistaken, with that 17 figures, an erroneous figure because they were counting different investigations that was sent out, but was based off of a similar report, and then some investigations kind of co-signed that thing. We're saying 17 intelligence agencies. But look, if they're doing the Mueller report that supposedly came after these 17 agencies, then Mueller would have probably looked into. He had wide range to actually touch on all these things. So if those 17 agencies had concern about Russian investigation, Mueller has almost certainly looked at the information and details those agencies had and put it into his report. Next response to this first comment was, yeah, he's certainly not in the clear. Barr is a shady character who auditioned for the job by sending a memo that said he would clear the president. Even then, he still had to say that he was not exonerated. Do you read basic effing English? Are you stupid? You think this flimsy letter that doesn't even meet requirements to explain all indictments, declarations, and that are mandated by the regulations is going to stop us from getting to the truth? Then you are a very low IQ person. So here, of course, we have the whole insults thing. A lot of these people are talking about, oh, they're more IQ. They're saying on the political right. Some race realists will be talking about how the different levels of IQ of people are saying, like, oh, look, the IQ of white people is higher, so we should have a white nation and things like this compared to black people. And then people on the political left will be like, oh, that doesn't really matter. Race isn't really a thing. But then there's also people on the political left who will use this kind of thing in this kind of sense where we are better. We are the educated people. So they'll poo poo the way IQ is used by some people who have the right leaning, but they'll also use IQ for their own things, calling people stupid, shaming people in this kind of way. Well, anyway, so first of all, do you read English? I guess people are just saying things. This is a constant reminder for myself when I actually take some of these things. Both people on political rights, just people in general, literally mean figuratively. When they say the war on this, they don't actually mean war. I like to be very specific with certain words when you're talking about certain situations. Stop calling it the war on men. Stop calling it the war on women. Stop calling it the war on drugs. War is a whole different deal. I guess in general, it's just like an organized combat, an organized attack against something that's a threat where you can identify this thing. But for me, I like keeping wars to actually those hot wars, a civil war, where it's like it's more challenging, more of a risk, more of a threat kind of situation versus these war on men or these kind of situations. Anyway, so well, this person, you're very low IQ, is talking about how stop us from getting to the truth. Okay, I don't know. Moving on to the next one. So here, Mohel Skinberg. Verdict: the U.S. with the dollar sign, it's all in caps, is hopelessly corrupted and beyond saving. The end of its empire was marked by its inauguration of that traitorous dotard who didn't even want its leadership. So this has been one of the things that some people are repeating. Okay, and this one is 16 likes. Some people have been repeating this whole thing that Donald Trump didn't even expect to win, and like he just kind of got in. He was running it. It's just a joke, and I think that's because most of the people a lot of people, a significant minority of the people on the left, were actually buying that whole thing. Like, oh, it's just a joke. He's just doing this, and even some people were kind of like, okay, was he running as a plant, kind of as a fake to kind of just let Hillary Clinton get in by him taking out the Republicans? But now I don't think people like Donald Trump would actually do what they do and put their family at risk in that kind of level for something they don't really care for. I think just take his word for it. That's one thing I take his word for, where he just looked at the country and was like, this country has given me a lot. I want to give back. So this whole idea like, oh, he didn't even want its leadership. So this goes back to another thing. If Hillary Clinton was the most qualified, and this might be like a Bernie fan who was like, yeah, Bernie would have won if he got in. But anyway, so Bernie, again, he's a seasoned politician. He's been in there since the 80s. Hillary Clinton, most effective, most qualified politician. If somebody just entered and won who didn't even want to win and defeated all these people on the left, then what does that say about your candidates? What does that say about their qualifications if they could lose to somebody who didn't even want to win? It's like, oh, you go to the Super Bowl, and then one team kind of just picks people from the crowd, and these people are kind of like, we don't want to be here. We don't want to do this. We don't really know the rules. We don't really care. And that other team has been working for years. They've been building up that team for years. They've had the entire season working, doing the best plays and things like that. And they still get trounced. What does that say about the team that has been working for years and years versus the team that didn't even want to win and still won? So this whole idea I don't even understand. And someone's response to that was true verdict. And then the other one was another response to Platform 7 Rose was Mohel Skinberg. Why don't you bring up that Heinz 57 Mutt bury the tyranny effort? So again, yeah, there's people on the political right or girls who are going to bring up Obama in these kind of situations. But whatever. Okay, here from Z137. I'm getting the feeling we've been sold a dud. Where is the collusion? So disillusioned. Don't care that the SDNY of the Southern District of New York is going to get the orange blob. It was the Russia cheating that concerned me. Was he cheating or not? If not, then SDNY can investigate him after he's out of office. What a crock. I have been duped. Like, duped with news. And I think there's a significant percent of the people on the left who actually took the word of people like Don Lemon in the mainstream media who were saying, because people like James Clapper, who is a former CIA head, was saying he's treasonous, he's done all these things. They were believing them. They truly believed them, just like they truly believed after the Covington thing. They truly believed that the reporters wouldn't say that Nick Sandelman had actually done something negative to that Native American elder unless they had proof. They wouldn't believe that Jesse Smollett, because some of these people on the left understood Jesse Smollett. They knew he was activist. He was an activist on the political left. They knew the people that he knew. They knew those people come out and say, like, I know Jesse Smollett personally, and I've gone out there, I'm vouching for him. So they truly believe these people. And that's why when it comes back, that's a hoax. Like, wow, I can't believe this. I feel duped. And I think more and more people are seeing these. And like this guy is saying, like, look, I don't care about the SDNY. Sure, they might find some campaign financing. Oh, there was a business deal with this and that. But does that have anything to do with the people voting him in as the United States president? And for this person, he's like, I don't care about these other things. I care about the cheating. And I think a lot of people are like this. And I think these are the kind of people who I think will be going out there and searching for answers and are people that I think are worth engaging with and talking to. And a response here from CJ. What's occurring here is that you're experiencing cognitive dissonance. You fell for the Democrat corporate propaganda like the people in the Soviet Union fell for Pravda. This is a late-stage collapse, and you have been lied to your whole life. So you see with this person, it's like, yeah, I don't really agree on the late-stage collapse. I mean, some people have been going, like, I don't know. But again, what does collapse mean? I don't think they mean collapse like Soviet Russia collapse, where it's going to be like people dying in the streets and things like that. I've asked some people, what do you think it means by a civil war, the end of Western civilization? I think, if anything, these kind of things go cyclical. I mean, somebody's on top, and then you get to a situation where you transition into something else. In the past, it was like somebody walking. One way of living would be so far ahead from the back that it stays stagnant, and then that way stays, and that other way swings forward. Then you get like a bicycle where it's like a wheel, where there's like spokes and things like that. And I think now we're in like a hovercraft kind of situation where it's just everybody's lifted over the lowest, not on the ground, not on the floor, but is just moving around in these conflagration and whatnot, and then it's going to get to a point where somebody was providing most of the lift to this entire human race, civilization, human existence, but then now it switches off to like a different kind of piece of thing, but everything's attached, everything's connected. So I think we might transition more, and this is my opinion, we might transition more into like more of a global understanding where it's not like America is a superpower, where there's multiple superpowers, and then United States of America was the superpower. And that whole idea of superpowers is kind of going away. We're going to have certain hubs of certain things. I think America is still going to have the majority, the major cultural influence in the rest of the world. And a big part of why America is going to have the main cultural influence is the fact that a lot of people from other countries with their cultures do go to the United States of America and kind of redo and update their way they do things. They mix that in. That melting pot idea is truly there because they don't really have as strong of an established history where it's like, we're really stuck in our ways, or we're really going to do this in a certain way, because other countries, I think, have that, where it's like, look, there's a French way of doing things, and I guess they're trying to do it in a way, or they might be losing, but I don't know. Anyway, what I'm trying to say here is a lot of the reason the United States of America is currently the cultural leader, people are following things in the liberty movements, in the way the countries are run, in the way standards and expectations, the way people are treated, migrants and minority groups, and different ways of living, homosexuals, and different ways of approaching the world. Think about religions in general. The place where there's most religious acceptance is in the United States of America. The place where there's the most different kind of cuisines is in the United States of America. The place where there's the most innovation is in the United States of America. And I think that cultural kind of aspect will still kind of exist for a while, where there'll be some kind of hub in the way other countries kind of want to do things. Yet it won't just be like head over heels where this is just the best place to live in completely. There'll be other pockets of places all over the world that copy some of those ideas that are going to be able to actually lift their standards of living and existence around. Anyway, so let's go to the next comment here. It was always about keeping the spotlight off of Hillary until the next election, so nobody actually found out the shady stuff she was involved in, like Russia collusion via Uranium One, and it worked. And with this Hillary situation, I think this is another thing. The way this entire thing started, again, they want to continue to go to obstruction and go to more things. They don't want to go back and say that now this is done, let's review how this began. And I think this is one thing that's going to happen from the Republicans, from the political right. They're going to actually start investigating the actual investigation. And more information is going to come out, like how did this start? And the Steele dossier has been proven, I think has been shown to be a Hillary Clinton opposition research piece that initiated a lot of this. Of course, we saw the text was saying we need a what's it called? We need a backup plan in case Donald Trump wins. Those are things that are there, and more people will start saying like, okay, how far back did this go? Like this person, Zed, who feels duped, he may not have actually, he or she may not, or Z or Zer, may not have actually got onto this Russian thing from the start. They may have actually started getting more invested in the Russia thing after the Mueller thing was already going. It could have been 6 months in. It could have been a year in. We're like, wow, this Russia thing is going on? Did he actually do this? Like, wow. So they never actually had the time. They have other things to do in their life to actually go back and see, did the Steele dossier start this? Now that this is ended, this person might go back and see the Steele dossier started and be like, how would they have started it based off of this? Like, why would anybody do this? Okay, moving on to the next comment. The Democrats need to put Barr on the witness stand. I know he covered up for Trump. That's what, again, the punctuation on this one is just bad. Okay, so I'll start from the start again. The Democrats need to put Barr on the witness stand. I know he covered up for Trump. That was Trump's whole plan to fire Sessions, and Barr said he felt Mueller shouldn't be doing a probe. Trump, you better stop being such a liar. You can fool people, but you can't fool the Most High. Yah hates a liar. A liar won't tarry in his sight. The president needs to pray and stop trying to con the country. We're not stupid. Okay, you might not be stupid, but your grammar and punctuation is pretty garbage. So that was Cordell Ellis. CJ responds to Cordell Ellis. So CJ talked about here. Let's see, he was more cordial with the whole like cognitive dissonance before. Let's see what he says here. So they should put you on the witness stand to provide evidence for the most recent Bigfoot sightings. Okay, good one, CJ. So you see that, and I think that's the thing. You see, before that person was saying I've been duped, he was actually looking for answers, and I think those are the kind of people you engage with in that way. And then right here, this Cordell Ellis, who's I guess Yah is Yahweh, and you can tell he's just a bit belligerent here. You start praying and things like this. I'm just talking about like this was his plan the whole way. These are people who are just invested into it, and I don't think there's a point in actually engaging with them. And this is a similar thing when it was I remember it was more involved in the whole like atheist movement, where I was like, okay, you could kind of tell who was actually worth engaging with in the theist people. Some people were actually trying to actually have that conversation. Some people just want to preach at you. Okay, another response to Cordell Ellis. Attorney General William Barr's son-in-law just left his job in the Justice Department for the post in the White House counsel's office. A clear case of conflict of interest. Okay, I don't know if it is, but this is an incestuous thing that happens in politics all the time. People are related to this and this. This happens. I think there's a really good book out now talking about something like Joe Biden's son is involved in some other things and XYZ or getting these positions. And is there a conflict of interest now that when you say like, oh, Hillary Clinton was in positions of power in the government, yet former President Bill Clinton, Chelsea Clinton were involved in the Clinton Foundation. What about those kind of conflicts of interest and things like that? I don't think they really care. And then Christopher Block kind of, someone responded to Christopher Block saying, first reward for Barr, saying like, oh, his reward for Barr obstructing, I guess, was to get his son into a position. But it's not like the Justice Department post was, what was the Justice Department post? Is that so much worse than White House counsels or whatever? Let's go to one more response here, and might just finish. Might go a few more. There's no actual responses to these ones. So here by Cruz Silva. To all Trump supporters, period. This Barr character overstep his hearsay, comma, that there wasn't no conclusion. There's no capital letters. It's weird. Bad move on his part, when in fact, it's Congress that has that say, not the AG. For sure, Barr's arse is cooked. As to obstruction, it doesn't exonerate Trump. Do not accept that fact. Do not accept the fact. Trump is still in the shits because the Mueller probe. There's still those other serious investigations going on as to Trump. One of those or all will end up nailing Trump. You Trump supporters are too gun-ho. I guess it's supposed to be gung-ho. thinking Trump's been clear in in very direction. I guess every direction. And now in caps, sorry, period. But he isn't in the clear. So Cruz Silva, again, maybe English is not the person's first language, but these are the levels of Trump derangement syndrome where it's like, yeah, like, who says he's clear in all directions? Who's ever said this? There's no collusion. And this, Cruz Silva, what do you know about what the AG is supposed to say and supposed to not? But anyway, one more here. Abdul Latif. Again, this is not different than people's names. These handles people use. Trump has psychological issues. His behavior and narcissistic personality tells entire world Donald Trump is unfit president. Common sense and simple operation, he should be impeached as quickly as possible. Okay, again, impeachment is something where it's like legal, where you actually have to actually go in and have legal reasons to impeach somebody, and they haven't found that yet. Does he question Nancy Pelosi's leadership to actually say, okay, let's stop this? I don't know. Maybe he does. I don't really care. Here's another one. I had lowered expectations about this Mueller thing for quite some time. Mueller was not the most cunning prosecutor one can find, and he's too scrupulous to be able to deal with a crime family. While this Barr's facial expression says one thing, crooked. Not too many hopes to see a bones poor mobster behind bars anytime soon. So again, this is the whole thing where Trump is already a criminal. This is a belief system where Trump is the devil, so no matter what you say, he's going to be the evil demon, so we're going to have to find reasons to do this. Again, this judging on people's appearance, saying his face looks crooked and things like this. What does that matter? Is there actual evidence that this person is crooked? And that Mueller was not the most cunning prosecutor one can find. Why do you should be a cunning prosecutor? Too scrupulous. If you're scrupulous and you're actually dealing with things, people are like, no, we want you to actually be evil. We want you to be unscrupulous and actually deal with these people. It's like, no. If you're actually going to follow the letter of the law, has something been done? That's the kind of person you want there. And that's part of the reason. They're saying, look, Mueller is an upstanding guy. Mueller is going to hire people that are not going to be politically biased one way or another. He follows things by the books. And that's why people were supporting him. A lot of people on the left. Was this guy saying no? Like we should get somebody who's unscrupulous. I don't know. I guess that's why you could support someone like Clinton. Now here we go again with the last one, I think. Okay. Michael Skinberg. Michael Skinberg was there before. Was he there before? Yeah, he was there before. Here's another comment by Michael Skinberg. Question. Does the U.S. president have a diagnosed or undiagnosed degenerative brain disease? Then he put slurred, slow, droning speech. And this is a weird thing. Okay, I have never noticed slurred, slow, or droning speech. I have seen some of this from Nancy Pelosi where she's asked things and there's video evidence where she kind of stops. There's that thing of Hillary Clinton kind of having her head kind of wobble in a weird way after she was asked a question. Of course, there was a collapse that she had. There's things like with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who's in the Supreme Court. She's really old, and these parts where she fell down the other day and broke her rib or something, or she was kind of taken out of the court for a while. There's been evidence of her going to events where she falls asleep and things like this. She's being interviewed and she kind of nods off, or she's not really quite there, but then she snaps back in and she has these comments. So is Michael Skinberg as interested with these other people? When Donald Trump went to the doctor and they're like, yeah, he's in really good health for someone his age and things like that, they just say, no, that doesn't matter yet. Science is settled on climate change and these kind of things. So the response to that was like, you don't watch CNN, LMAO. I just hate people who say, I dislike it when people say LMAO or laughing madly, falling all around, these kind of things when they're not really laughing. I guess it's a shorthand. It literally means figuratively, but it's just a peeve I have. Then Mike Bernard here answers, is this the same Mike Bernard from before? Let me see if I can remember. Was it? No, that was CJ before. But Mike Bernard, I think, had a comment before, somewhere before up here. Yeah, it was the top comment saying the highlighted comment saying, I think there's a name for you not being guilty. It's exonerated. So the response here says, you mean like Hillary? Good call. Can we push that narrative now? 25th Amendment, maybe? And then he says, ROFLMAO. You're not rolling on the floor madly laughing all around when you're... Just stop it. Stop it. Well, anyway, that's it. So that's it for now. Well, I don't know. It seems comical to me with some of the things, the reactions. The whole thing happening itself, it was not comical because I think it's an abuse of power and just a negative thing to see people make something out of whole cloth like this and actually spend this much money in it and spend this much effort. But I think in general, people will see that a lot of what the state does is this. You look in other sections and you'll see waste and just abuse of power and just misallocation of funds and things like this. Even with the best intentions, you see these kind of things happening because I think majority of the people who are supporting this, at least the civilians, the general population, are good people who are truly just misguided by small people with power who I think even those small people with those small percent of people with power, they found ways in their minds to rationalize this as a positive action, and then they can go out and trick other people because in their minds they're not tricking people. In their minds they're like, look, I'm doing this even if it's simply I need to tell this lie, like this person said. The person in here clearly said in the comment section that what's it called that Mueller was too scrupulous because these people understand. They're like, look, I am okay with lying if something that I care about is under threat. And I've also talked about this. If my nephew is hiding somewhere and there's a gunman, he's shooting people, and then he comes and he says, is there anyone else hiding in this place? I'm not just going to be like, oh yeah, I have to give you 100% honesty. My nephew's hiding in that closet. No, I would lie. It would say like, no, there's nobody else in here. So these people have gotten to a point where they have thought themselves into a situation where they say, I have to lie, I have to cheat, I have to steal because me maintaining power, me maintaining control is somehow more positive for, first of all, me, the people I care about, and then they can now glom it onto the whole country in general. So they have people like this, and I think most people were actually taken in by this and have gotten to a point where they truly think that no. It's kind of like a taqiyya thing. The taqiyya thing is a thing in Islam that says if you're doing something for the betterment of Islam, if you're in a situation where there's actually a war, where Islam is under threat, and you're facing an enemy combatant, an enemy who's trying to destroy your way of living, you can actually lie to this person. You can trick this person. You can pretend you're not a Muslim, or you can pretend you're actually on this person's side, as long as it's for the betterment of Islam, of your faith. And I think you look about this, that's what I've talked about people, statism is a religion. Statism is a metheist religion where the people themselves are the godheads of their own reality tunnel. And the difference with just saying you're in control of your reality tunnel, they think what they think about their reality tunnel also affects everybody else's reality tunnels. They can constantly change these things around. And once you look at it in that religious way, you can see that this is a form of taqiyya for them. It's a form where, like, we're going to accept any kind of negative things as long as it betters our worldview, as long as it maintains our worldview, because these people on the right are not just stupid. These conservatives are not just stupid. These libertarians, these people talking about freedom, these people who disagree with our kind of worldview are not just stupid. They're evil. They need to be stopped by any means necessary. So they're willing to go to these unscrupulous terms. They're willing to lie, cheat, steal, hurt, and do all these things because they think they're doing it for the greater good, to be on the right side of history, etc., etc. So that's it for this video. Goodbye. One important thing to think about is who are you looking at to inspire you and make you want to be a better version of yourself. You shouldn't be looking at media. You shouldn't be looking at politicians. I think you should actually find that hero somewhere else. Look at that Mariah Carey song. But just this whole situation, just the Russia thing will go on. It's like that Celine Dion song. I won't hear my Russia will go on. That's how it's going to go. It's going to go on and on, and expect more and more of this. But either way, goodbye.